What is going on, team? Welcome to another video, and today in fact marks the second video in my new short series on my new hybrid training split. The first video, which was released a couple of weeks ago, is basically just an overview of the 6-day split itself and kind of the main focus of each one of the training sessions. The upper body strength, the lower body strength, all the running that's included, how we develop cardio outside of the running, the inclusions of strongman, and most importantly, the inclusions of the power work that we are injecting into this program. Hybrid power basically kind of being the term that I've coined for this particular approach. I want to be functional in my ability to run a decent 5K or a decent mile. I want to be able to take the floor in a functional fitness or kind of like de-skilled CrossFit competition. But I also want to be able to lift decent numbers in the gym, to turn my hand to some strongman style training. But I also want to be able to maintain a level of athleticism that I generally see lacking in 95% of the population. Even with people that can lift massive numbers and then maybe do a decent triathlon, might not be able to sprint or run or climb or throw. There's no injection of proper raw athletic power in there, and that is what I believe that I've done in the split. Before I go any further, I would just apologise for my horrendously hoarse voice and my constant Barry White impression over the next 15-20 minutes. But the reason for this is I was at a functional fitness competition yesterday with some of the other guys from the Endeavour Life team. It was called Yard Games at 3rd Space in Canary Wharf in London. It was absolutely sick, and the vlog for that is going to come out in the next week or so. But I was screaming the place down, as well as probably not being too fit and healthy generally when I took to the floor yesterday afternoon. So apologies, but please do bear with me. I know that you're gonna love taking a deep dive into my first hybrid power session today. So getting into the nitty gritty, guys, of our first session of this hybrid power split, kicking this video series off in the way that we'll kick off our week, and that is with an upper body strength session. If you've been following me in my content for a while, you will know, I've said it once, I've said it a million times, that before I do my heavy lifting in the gym, I absolutely love to do basically a super ballistic, super dynamic primer exercise, basically. This is where we do something that is resisted, but it's normally lightly resisted, and it's just executed with maximum speed. I find this just warms up my tissues, it warms up the connective tissues, and it gets my central nervous system, so the connection between your brain and your muscles, which is the bit that actually dictates kind of speed and power of movement. It gets that firing so flipping effectively. My good buddy and 3-time Olympian Ben Simons has written this program for me on behalf of his company Semtech Systems, and the way that I am priming my upper body today is with a single arm slam ball shot put throw. So the only way that I could basically think to do this is to put 2 plyo boxes on top of each other, as you're seeing here, ball in the shoulder, make sure you get a little bit of hip rotation and just slam that flipping ball through that box. 5 on the right, 5 on the left, short break of about 30 seconds, and then go through, and we're going to do that 3 times. And again, it just makes sure that even in terms of your core, that's firing, in terms of kind of the power through the hips, because you're pushing off that back leg, that's firing. We make sure that you're continuing to accelerate through that movement. I thought putting the plyo boxes on top of each other would be the best way to protect the wall, and I'm happy to say that I was wrong. So I think basically I put it slightly in the wrong position. I kept throwing the ball into the box kept like smashing into the whiteboard, which is precariously drilled to say the least, and then a little bit of paint chipped off the wall. But hey, it's a gymnasium, if it can't handle me, it shouldn't be functioning. I'm actually really glad that Ben programmed it this way. There's 2 main benefits of executing this kind of stuff before. It's a really, really good way, as I said, to kind of warm up your main muscular tissue, your connective tissue, and your central nervous system, but just the right amount to basically, again, prime it, obviously, and kind of get it ready for the heavy lifting that's going to ensue. But you're not doing too much of it, but you've got loads of heavy eccentric load, and basically you're not accruing fatigue. So the volume on a primer has to be kind of like perfectly executed, but I believe it was here. And the other thing that I'm kind of grateful to Ben for is it made me realize that I do a lot of unilateral work in my lower body. I do a lot of like single leg stability and even an increasing amount of single leg power work. However, I don't do an awful lot of single arm work in terms of primers, and not that much single arm work in terms of horizontal push. I'm a big fan of like Philly press with a dumbbell. I'm a big fan of like single arm work overhead generally, but horizontal push, and especially in terms of priming, which again would kind of which would allow a little bit of rotation, I don't do an awful lot of that, and the fact that Ben put this in the program made me realize that straight away. 5 on the right arm, 5 on the left arm, 3 times through. Unbelievably effective way of getting ready for a session, and takes less than 3 minutes, done and in the bag. Moving on to the meaty stuff. Onto the bench press today, because that is going to be the focus for the next couple of weeks, and it has been a while since I have done any wave loading. For those of you that don't know what wave loading is, it is basically a descending rep scheme. So basically a set of 5, a set of 3, and a set of 2. at increasing weight, so increasing percentages of your 1 rep max, with about kind of, as you'd expect with this kind of load, anywhere between 2 and 4 minutes break between, and then basically a 4-minute break after the set of 2, and then you go back to another set of 5, a set of 3, and a set of 2 again. However, with this second round, with this second wave, you are lifting higher percentages than you were on the first one. So to put some meat on the bones for that theory then, basically I did a set of 5 at 75% of my 1 rep max, a couple of minutes break, and then did a set of 3 at 80%, and then a set of 2 at 85%. Again, as I said a minute ago, a short kind of, well, 4-minute-ish break, and then you go back through a bit at a higher load. So I did my set of 5 this time at 80%, my set of 3 at 85%, and then a set of 2 at 90%. This is how wave loading works. I'll be honest, it is a big chunk of the session to do this properly, but it is such an amazing kind of science-backed way to truly improve strength, and especially for any kind of gym bros out there that just like smash out a certain number and kind of make it up as they go along. This is a really, really good way to especially kind of burst through a plateau. And because the amount of total volume that you're doing in that wave loading bench set, that is like 6 heavy sets on bench press done, that basically means that the accessory strength stuff, the more voluminous kind of like functional bodybuilding stuff that you do after the main strength component at the beginning, you don't have to do as much of it. Primarily because doing wave loading properly means that you're really challenging your central nervous system, and that stuff does take time, and it takes a lot of flipping fuel out of the tank. So moving on to the first kind of accessory set that I've got after the bench, I've weighted chin-ups for 6 reps, and then some Arnold press for 12. I imagine the reason that Ben programmed it this way is weighted chin-ups. Obviously the number's a little bit lower because we've done some heavy push, but we haven't really done any heavy pull. So 6 reps is kind of a good number, especially bodyweight pull-ups for me are at a level where realistically I'm not going to get a strength benefit if I do 5 or 6 purely bodyweight, because that's kind of moderately comfortable for me with kind of, I don't know what I'm kind of capable of doing now, kind of completely honestly, maybe about 25-ish. So realistically, to get a strength benefit from pull-ups in terms of vertical pull levers, I need to add resistance. So doing a heavy set of 6 was a really good inclusion here. And then Arnold press, I did go a little bit heavy at the beginning, and I think the wave load took more out of my push levers than I thought. So I had to drop down by a couple of kilos. And on the third and final set, because we're doing 3 rounds of this, I had to cluster it, drop the dumbbells, shake it off, and kind of go again. And then finishing off with a little bicep tricep core finisher, which I really liked, which involves some hammer curls, some tricep extension, and ab wheel rollout. The way that I executed the hammer curls on this one, my bicep tendon on my left-hand side is a little bit tight generally, and a lot of the time when I do bicep curls, it's pretty much just neutral. So I set the incline bench up as you're seeing here. And basically, because I'm leaning back slightly, that kind of forces me in a position where my arm is effectively behind me a little bit, the bicep tendon being stretched out slightly more than it would be in a resting position. And that just changes the angle that the bicep tendon is attached when it activates a little bit, working the bicep in a slightly different way. So I just decided to do it in this fashion for a nice little nuanced change. 12 of those, 12 heavy tricep extension, and then my favorite flipping way of working core anyway, which is counter movement. Again, a lot of people think the purpose of the abs connecting from your bottom rib to the top of your pelvis is basically spinal flexion. It's to kind of crunch you down. But I have to be honest, guys, the fundamental purpose isn't movement, like spinal movement, it's counter movement, it's to prevent movement. So if you think about it, your abs in your core, basically the muscles stay the same length. This is an isometric movement, but it becomes an isometric movement because your torso's upright, you go down, it's then stretched out, and then you're pulling up from there. One of the best flipping ways to work core ever. No real break here, just kind of use this as a little bit of a circuit and 3 rounds through. I hope that does make sense, guys, and I hope you did get some value from this video and from this content. If you did, please do smash that like button, it really does help a young, growing channel like myself. If you have not yet done so, please do subscribe, and the biggest favor you could do me is to share this video with someone just like you that you think might enjoy it and get as much value as you have. That is the best way to launch me into the deep dark waters of the YouTube algorithm, start feeding it what it wants to be fed, and bring me up in the rankings. That is the best gift you could possibly give me. Have an amazing day, guys. Stay strong, stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will see you guys in the next video.